Welcome to the internet. Have a look around. We're gonna watch today from Corridor Crew, and they asked that you kindly leave a like on this video. Their request specifically. VFX artists react to Spider-Man No Way Home bad and great CGI. You knew this was coming, Pete. Isn't that right? Isn't that right, Capito?
Get him! Bam! Thwack! Pow!
Anyway, guys, I only got this cat to put in videos to make me look more sensitive, and I hope it's working.
You're such a sweet guy.
I know. I give once a year to charity.
That's all it takes.
When write-off tax season comes to, oh my god, I'm paying so much, I need to lower these.
Don't worry, when you die, just build a public structure and then they'll name it after you and your whole reputation will be saved.
That's what I'm talking about. I already got the statue in the bathroom over there.
It's hard to pee.
How do you de-age somebody's face? What's the technique that goes into it?
That's just all against blue screen, and it's so effective.
The lightning flashes going on is actually hitting him there. That couldn't have been in the original movie.
Yeah. Touching the brick. That was like originally not a brick.
Wait, really? I would say that that secret did not leak.
Boom.
I mean, except for this shot. This shot got out there.
Oh yeah, you got some splaining to do.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Visual Effects Artists React. We're joined today by Kelly Port, an amazing
We met him.
We met him at the premiere.
He talked to us about
I
effects.
started 29 years ago with Digital Domain. Strange Days was my first film. Worked on Apollo 13,
Strange
Fifth
Days,
Element,
cool.
Titanic, and most recently been on a Disney Marvel kick with Beauty and the Beast, Maleficent, Avengers, Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and then most recently Spider-Man No Way Home as the production side supervisor.
Such a nobody.
Any like big films?
On my last 3 films, if you look at gross worldwide box office, their numbers 1, 2, and 3 are my last 3 films, which is pretty crazy.
That's gotta feel
Wow.
I don't get any
Jesus.
sleep, and I don't get any of that box office.
Oh, you're a
You probably don't get what you're worth. Yeah.
You seem so sad there.
It's absolutely true, probably, for like all of that work that makes this movie as spectacular and world-reaching as it is. They probably just made like a base rate.
These movies depend so much on visual effects, and yet you get no stake in the points. That's kind of crazy to think about, especially for a movie like this. They should change that, and you know they will.
They will definitely, and they'll pay the artists what they're worth.
Dude, I remember seeing this shot where they're both flying through the city and it's like, okay, Zendaya's face is obviously real there, but nothing else I imagine is real at all.
What's so fun about that, they used something similar in Far From Home, this technique that was just crazy simple. John Watts, I think, came up with it, but it was just this fun sort of doggy cam style where they're kind of on bungee wires and getting pulled by stunt guys, you know, left and right, and tugged this way, left and right, and he would try to use his arms as he's webbing, and then they would try to kind of do that in sync. And then they had a giant, you know, fan blowing on her, and then her face is just so perfect, like she looks terrified.
Yeah.
And really, that's just
a
all
great
against
shot.
blue screen, and it's so effective, and it's so simple too. Some of the challenge comes in is putting that virtual camera through that virtual city, because all that stuff behind them, you know, we can't shoot drones. There's restrictions on shooting drones within the city.
Wow.
What's interesting is like trying to find those angles, trying to find the arc of the swing.
Yeah, to
So
make it
typically
match.
The guys would animate a swing and find that arc, and then put that virtual camera behind that.
Something I'm noticing about the sequence here is the lighting. So if you're swinging through a city like this, the direction of the sun is going to change relative to the angle of this chest-mounted camera, but also I'm noticing shadows quickly flying over her head there. So was that done on set with like flags blocking the light just really quickly and you're having to match that, or is that a digital shadow?
It's a little bit of both, but it's primarily in camera. So what you want to do is have a consistent sun angle and then just block it, you know,
Okay,
to
yeah.
get that sort of tempo. We would do camera tests about like how frequent we thought that would be, and this just felt right. So if it was too rapid, it would look weird. If it wasn't rapid enough, it would look weird. So it's like finding that Goldilocks sort of rhythm.
I do see one thing here, which is like a nightmare for me, which is motion blurred curly hair that's frizzy. Blue green screen. So how the heck did you do that? How did you key your hair, like make it look so clean? It's like all over the place. It's moving. It's frizzy.
This one was a little bit harder because the camera was so active, and it's one of those screens where you saw a little bit of the back wall, you saw a little bit of things like blocking the lights, and then you saw some painted, very dirty blue floor that people have been walking on. So it makes
what
it
a
even
nightmare.
more challenging when you have those kind of things.
Because now you're
happen.
having to actually create mats from rotoscoping.
One of the tricks that I've learned, what you can do is take alternate takes, even sometimes the same take, where the camera's relatively locked off, where you can really pull a nice, good key, and you can take just flying hair. You stabilize that, and then you track that onto her
wow.
own
Oh my
hair.
goodness.
So it's her hair being tracked onto her, but it's not her
Jesus
hair at that moment.
Christ.
It's from like some other piece.
Wow.
I am your hair from the future.
That's really clever.
As someone with the curly, frizzy hair, if we ever have to like do a cutout, like for thumbnails or green screen, it is a nightmare already. So I'm like, seeing that in motion, I can only imagine just how difficult that is. I didn't realize that they like literally had to virtually build all of New York City. New York City is at your disposal. Yeah. Whereas in the other Spider-Man movies, the ones before the MCU, they would literally use drone shots and then they would insert Spider-Man swinging a lot of the time.
That or those like football style like camera on a wire kind of things. That's impressive, man. Like
crazy.
Wow.
And what I did notice too was that while they do have the shadows when they're slowing it down, one thing that I become particular about noticing is when they're passing like the Steve Rogers building, it's so yellow. There probably should be a little bit of yellow going
Light
over her.
reflection,
Yeah. So, but I'm like, I don't
Do better next time.
So, you know, they have Tom Holland in the actual Spider-Man suit on set, but you end up replacing the suit to make it unify everything together later on. How much of the suit is real versus
Yeah, he
Particular
mentioned
case,
that.
It's mostly real.
Okay. Good looking suit then.
It's very perfect, right?
Okay,
Like,
so you
it's
control the
very
eye
smooth,
movement and
you
stuff,
wanna see
yeah.
The muscles. You don't want to see stitching or too bad of wrinkles. you
Yeah.
know? So sometimes that's traditional 2D kinds of cleanup. Sometimes it's easier, given the circumstances, to just render and light a CG suit in there to help with that cleanup process.
Peter, you may have dodged your legal troubles, but things will get much worse.
With Murdoch here and catching the brick, that was like originally not a brick.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wait, was it like a hot dog or something? Like,
It was a snow globe.
A snow globe.
Oh, in honor of Mysterio.
Came after the fact.
fuck.
So that shot where Tom Holland grabs the brick away from Daredevil there.
He's actually grabbing a snow globe.
So are those CG fingers on his hand?
You can see it's more of a sphere shape.
Yeah, I guess he does kind of
Yeah.
like grab like the sides of the brick with his two fingers. It's
Yeah.
like, that's a weird way to get a grab brick.
Spider fingers.
and same thing with Murdoch there at the beginning. Like, so he grabs the brick there.
I
and he
did
has it
notice
there,
that
so
hand
what you can
shape.
tell-
Kind of by the shape of his palm that he's actually grabbing something more spherical.
Especially with Tom Holland there with his hands out like in a sphere shape like this as opposed to like brick shape. I had no idea about that. That's fascinating.
Wait, why would they change that though?
That's an excellent question.
I mean, it might be weird if like a perfect snow globe just went in and he caught just the actual sphere of the snow globe.
Yeah, and I guess maybe a brick is a better window breaking tool.
Snow
like,
globe could break.
could break itself and spray all over the place. But I don't know, like in a movie, you have control over the fact that you can just animate it not to do that. I feel like the snow globe in some ways would be a more meaningful little Easter egg.
Brick feels a little bit more personal,
And it feels like New York.
more tangible, since that
Yeah.
actually happens more often.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's like a hate crime.
Realism. It's all about realism.
Yeah, and your Spider-Man crossover movie.
Hello, Peter.
So there's a lot of talk about de-aging. It's been a thing in visual effects now
yeah.
for 15, 20 years, I feel like. How do you de-age somebody's face? What's the technique that goes into it?
It's a bunch of different techniques. Some studios have sort of a deep fake type of technique. There's a lot of proprietary facial tracking that goes into it, and then they essentially just track that on and have to relight it. But it's also kind of pushing, tucking, and pulling. There's all these sort of characteristics that happen as a human being ages, and those are the things that you just basically have to now correct for. And you can overcorrect for it, and they start to look too young or too different. And so we tried to do our best to keep it pretty subtle, but just have it ring more towards what he looked like in that previous film.
But it really seems like de-aging is a catch-all term for like 10 different actual techniques happening. Like sometimes it's a straight up 3D model, sometimes you're just doing a little bit of warping to 2D footage, sometimes it's texture work that's like tracked onto the face, sometimes it's AI-based stuff. But it seems like really it's a whole bunch of different techniques all being applied in different ways to achieve ideally the same goal. And it just really depends on the shot that you're doing.
Yeah, and I don't think there's really any one technique that's better necessarily. I think it's just different approaches to solve the same problem.
A personal preference, one thing I admired about the last Fast and Furious movie was that they actually used younger actors for John Cena and Vin Diesel. And I'd like them to do a little bit more of that. I'm not like anti-deepfake or anti-de-aging. The route we're going down, though, is kind of terrifying for the amount of things you can get away with using likeness or like the wiggle room. Like, we don't own the actor, but we own the character, so we can do this, you know? And that's the terrifying part of where you can go with these films and not even pay the actors.
Yeah, that and also too, just on a technical level, I feel like it puts you in a real susceptible place to fall into fix it and post syndrome, where it's like, we can do anything we want with this character, whether or not we're actually going to be able to achieve that in a way that's not going to ultimately be distracting or call attention, like you said, take you out of the movie.
Yeah, fix it in post. That seems to be Marvel's philosophy. I don't like the snow globe. Let's just casually change to a brick.
This was so great when Toby and Andrew and Tom were all there, because it was pretty, obviously, as you can imagine, very hush-hush. And it was just such a great vibe to have them all there.
Tried to be.
Definitely the set was a buzz.
This is obviously an incredibly major secret, and I would say that except for this shot got out there. We made a video about it, but like, this was a successfully kept secret. Like, no one actually knew for fact that these two were in it, let alone in it as much as they were. What are some of the problems involved with trying to keep such an important secret?
It's just thousands of people. Like, our visual effects team is by far the biggest team there is, and often the leaks don't necessarily come from visual effects. In this case, I think they did, or an outsourced vendor, I think, is where it really came from. I think the main thing that keeps people from doing it is, like, they're just gonna lose their job.
Yeah.
Like, forever. As a studio, when Marvel Sony sends over a sequence to a visual effects studio to begin work, we call that a turnover. And then when they get that, it's usually sent as a sequence, and your name is like watermarked across the whole thing. So it's either the visual effects producer or the name of the studio, and that's sort of the preventative medicine, I guess.
You're not Peter Parker.
This movie got licked like a
Final
motherfucker.
trailers of this movie to drop had like Spider-Man going up against the Sandman, the Lizard, Electro, all in like this climactic shot, and then it ends and it's like, oh man, I'm so hyped for the movie. But I guess in, was it Brazil? That shot in that trailer was extended another like 15 frames or so, like a half second, and it was just enough to show the Lizard there get hit by a ghost.
Yep.
Obviously, we're seeing these shots that are different from the final thing, but it's not just simply a matter of like, oh, we just turned off the Spider-Man layer. Are these shots created specifically for the trailers?
Yes.
What all is involved with having to make that happen?
So we literally just remove them from the renders. And if there's shadows, we have to, account for those. So they just remove the Andrew and Toby layers.
So it kind of maybe is a little bit of just straight.
Your fault.
I find it really interesting that there's a lot of visual effects work being done just for the marketing purposes rather than the final product.
Sometimes you also see it's the same shot, like it's a similar shot from the movie, but it's a different take.
I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names. I'm Peter, by the way.
Doctor Strange.
Oh, you're using your made-up names.
That happens sometimes too. But yeah, sometimes there's a trailer-only shot. It's just additional extra material that's fun to see that you wouldn't necessarily see in the film.
Fair point.
Morbius!
Yeah! Woo!
Morbius! It's fun.
Let's get
fun.
that VFX artist episode.
It was really cool to not only see the three Spider-Man character finally come together, that was very cathartic, but also to have all of these villains from the previous movies come back together. But I also noticed that Lizard and Sandman here are basically in their CG versions the whole time, but we only see small little clips of them as their real people. Did they film anything for this?
They did not. We didn't really have access to Resiphons or Thomas Hayden Church, so we actually ended up using footage from the previous films and manipulating it. So Resiphons, when he's healing, we actually used an outtake, and that was shot on film, scanned at high resolution, tracked, body tracked, everything. Like,
yeah.
So ultimately,
Wow.
a lot of that CG, especially for Thomas Hayden Church when he's transforming, we had to manipulate it to get him into the scene, lighting-wise, and all sorts of things like that.
But you're still using the footage as kind of like a base texture, like a diffuse texture?
Yeah,
okay, sure.
yeah.
Because I noticed like he's got sand pouring down his face, so obviously you had to have had like a 3D model of his face remade and matched in so that you can have that new particle sim of sand falling down.
Yeah.
The lightning flashes going on is actually hitting him there. That couldn't have been in the original movie.
Yeah. And we have the 3D model of him, and like you said, we had to have that for the sand simulation anyway. So you can also use that as a way to manipulate the lighting as well.
So that chart there, is that a full 3D model, or is that footage of him that you guys are kind of then manipulating from Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
I thought they bought them back the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
Did you?
I couldn't tell, but that was probably where I landed. Was they got a couple of shots, I guess.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's probably why they were in CGI, because they could only get them for a limited time. So kudos to them. I do wish that with the amount of like rewriting and restructuring, and they had to have known they couldn't get them, I wish that for at least Sandman made some excuse for why.
He's always in sand form.
Yeah, because that distracted me the whole time.
Yeah.
This is the first time I watched it. It's just majorly distracting to me.
This isn't how you were before. It seems like it would hurt your case. It seems like it would make you really easy to track.
Where's the box, Peter?
With No Way Home, we had an opportunity to see what's effectively a full CG character realized at a different era with VFX technology. So we had Sandman back with Spider-Man 3, and it was a pretty big deal to have grain simulations and that many particles on screen at the same time. And then you guys revisited Sandman here. How did the technology change between those two films with almost a decade and a half, if not 2 decades between them?
Certainly technology has changed in a big way. More effective simulations, the power to compute more is certainly improved in 10 years dramatically. Ultimately, in some of these big simulations, they were like 300 million particles or something like that. It's like really crazy.
That's a lot.
But they're big simulations, and Chris Wagner of ImageWorks would remind me of that all the time. Like, if I had notes, it's like, okay, just reminding you that these are very big simulations.
But I feel like that's also very reasonable. It's like you have like this whole sequence. It took hours, if not days, and so many gigabytes or terabytes to simulate all this stuff. And then it's like, well, I wanted this one little thing in this one corner here to be different. But in order to make that change, you have to redo it all.
Yeah.
That's how simulations work.
Yeah. You use what you have. So in that sense, nothing has changed in 10 years. Like, what really has changed is the ability to iterate more. But because, yes, you can iterate more, but you're iterating with more. So you're always pushing that technology to its breaking point.
Gotcha.
Oh, it sounds like a nightmare.
Better, you just turn up the number of particles, and it still takes the same amount of time to render.
That's kind of crazy, because remember all that talk that was happening with No Way Home of they were down to the wire with visual effect close to the release date, like right when the movie was coming out. What he just said there, maybe just reframe that whole thing and be like, how are you not always down to the wire?
Yeah, especially in a movie that's like every shot has VFX in it somewhere, and with so many simulations to run, like that's gotta be, like the time management alone on these things has to be insane, and also never on schedule.
And what happened with the pandemic too, of how that set everything back for VFX artists as well. So that's what that makes me wonder if Thor: Love and Thunder will indeed come out on time.
Oh,
because of VFX.
That's a good call. Just reworking those lightning sims.
That was fantastic. And he comes across that way in real life too.
Yeah.
I was like, you're like the exact same way.
You're just like talking to you in real life.
There is no persona here, unlike us.
Unpretentious.
In person, I'm like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I guess, cool.
And they're always like, hey, you're John's friend. But I get everywhere I go.
That's right, man.
You're John's friend.
Just living in my shadow. How's it feel?
It feels good. Allows me to have an opportunity to do something productive.
That's right. You're the Harry Osborn of this channel.
All right, guys. Well, subscribe to Corridor Crew. Subscribe to the Rejects. Let's do a Daniel Gallagher. It's been a few years, and we have not run out of stuff to say about you during these monthly shoutouts. We have so many things to say about Daniel. New things to mine all the time.
Got hard drives worth.
When it comes to Daniel Gallagher, my gosh, the things that are just coming into my brain right now, firing, I can't get them focused.
The words don't stop coming.
They don't stop coming. It's like we haven't exhausted all we know about you yet. We just keep learning new things to say about you, Daniel.
Opening up and blossoming outward for us, revealing new secrets about you.
Gallagher, Daniel
Deep
is
train.
another way to say your name.
Oh.
And you know, you have a middle name, I'm sure of it. You've been here a while, constant development here.
Always.
Thank you for being here, Daniel. And you're a great cat.
Love you.
Love you, Daniel. You're amazing. Don't leave.
I don't need your life story.